One of the very powerful things of Angular is directives. Directives allow you to create your own HTML tags and have them render as you want them to. You can also apply this to attributes and classes and also element names to adjust essentially how an HTML tag actually renders. What we're going to do here is show you a very practical example on how that's done using something called confirm click. You've probably seen this before. When you click on some element, a warning box comes up and says, like, are you sure you want to do this? You say okay, and then you go on. We're going to be doing that here using our own directive, and I'm going to call this the confirm click directive. So inside of my JavaScript, I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call it utils, because this is a utility function. So you want to make sure that it's in our folder, or actually we want it in our app folder. So let's make sure it's in there. And inside of our app, new folder, utils, and there it is. And in here, we're going to make another new folder as well. And we're going to call this confirm-click. And inside that, we are going to create two new files, confirm-click.module.js and confirm-click.directive.js. Okay, so in the module, just like we've seen before, and if you don't remember, you can actually just click on any module that you like, and we're going to name this confirm click. Notice how I'm doing the camel casing there. This is actually in the directive file, so that's okay. We will come back to that. We're also going to put it in the module itself. So we come back, and now we're in here, and just like what we've done before as well, I'm going to change that and just do period, and now instead of using like component, we'll use directive, and we're going to give it the same name of confirm click, and it's going to be a function, and it's going to do a few things, and within this function we are going to return something, and those somethings, the first thing that we'll do is we'll put a link here, and we'll say function scope element attribute. Notice how I'm writing scope. There's no $sign in front of it like we've seen before. Right now, all I'm going to do is console log the scope, console log the element, and finally console log the attributes. So we can see what these things do. So now that we've got this, let's actually add it into our index. I'm going to go ahead and go at the bottom and copy that last one there and just paste this in here, app, and we're going to change this to being utils, and then now another folder, confirm-click, and finally confirm-click.module. Copy this one time and add it in as directive. You want to make sure you're loading the module before the directive on all of these, actually. So now that we've got that, we're going to go into our app module itself, and we're going to add in confirm-click here. Confirm-click. Okay, so now we've got it all set up. I'm going to go ahead and open up my blog list, and actually in the blog list, we'll put it where the link is, and we're just going to write confirm-click. That's all we're doing. Notice it is a HTML element. It's on the attribute of the HTML element. So if I refresh in here, notice all these things that are actually coming through. So this right here is coming from our actual directive. So we actually logged all those things. We logged the attributes. So if we wanted to look at the attributes, we could actually do attribute.confirm-click. And notice how we're spelling it here. But if you didn't know that, you could just look at where it's console log, confirm clicks here. We can also do the attribute of the href, so where it's going. So attribute ng href. We can try console log the attribute of just href. And let's go ahead and refresh in here. And of course we see ng href works. And then as far as the confirm click, it's just empty, because that attribute is empty. So if we actually set it to mean something, we could say in here, we can say, are you sure? Put a question mark, refresh, and now if I see inside of my URL, I see that it says, are you sure? Notice that the element, it says a.ng binding. So the console log of the element is showing that it's an A tag. Well, if we change the element, let's actually just cut out this confirm click here. And now I'll put confirm click down here. So confirm dash click and close it off. And we can still put it equal to something. So are you sure? So we refresh in here. Confirm click is no longer rendering, or at least it doesn't seem like it is. So we'll go ahead and do ABC here. And it's there, but it's not actually showing anything for us. And that's because we actually need to put in a template if we want this to work. So we'll go template and we'll say, are you sure? And put a comma there, refresh, and still nothing. So let's go back and look at our HTML code. Right here. We're gonna get rid of this element here. We'll come back to that concept itself and refresh. And now, of course, the template actually shows up. Of course, also in this directive, you could just use an anchor tag as well. So you could just come in here and, do something similar to this because it's a template, right? So you could also render an external template and you can do all sorts of things. So we'll actually work along this lines of this using this template in particular. Now, something I do want to note is we can actually restrict this element to where we want it to be. So if I comment out this template right now and I move confirm click just the attribute itself onto the A tag, I can do that no problem. And refresh in here, it still is actually there, which will make more sense if I brought this back. So let's bring the template back, we refresh, and now notice all the links have now changed, and we have that extra link too. So all the links are now what the directive says. So we just changed everything about the element that it's on, which is cool. It gives us an advantage. But maybe we don't want that to happen. Maybe we don't want it to actually show up here at all. We'd only want it to show up when it's its own element. Now this is actually pretty easy and pretty straightforward to do. We come in here and we add a new key value pair of, this time it's going to be restrict and capitalized E, and that restricts it to the element, so the tag itself. If we wanted to restrict it to an attribute, we could do that, and then it's only the A tag. Then that's all it does. But we're going to keep it as the E tag. So then when we click on E, it's going to ask us something. Right now it's not doing anything, but it actually is coming through there. Now we also want to change how our question might be. Like we want to change what this is right here to something just a little bit different. But before we do that, let's actually talk about scope. We can actually add in scope on here and say scope, and we can put our curly brackets. And let's say, for instance, I wanted to say message, and I can put this equal to something called message. So let's just do the @ and message. So now I can take this item and I can come into the blog list and I can say message equals to are you positive, right? So this is now a message. So this is now a scope item. So back in my directive, remember how I passed in the scope item, I should see something in the console log now. So if I refresh, oops, we got an unexpected identifier. And it looks like maybe we needed to put a comma here. So let's bring that comma in and refresh again. Go back into our console. And now what we should see, let's actually get rid of some of these elements and just look at the scope for a second. And we refresh, and we're not getting anything particular from our scope, but we do see that we have scope.message, are you positive? So scope.message here is actually going to say, are you positive 4 times? Of course it does. No problem there. So we can actually change our scope for each one. We can also use just an equation in here if we wanted to. So let's do EQ equals to 10 plus 100 or 1,000, whatever. And then we can go back into our directive and I can say EQ and we'll put equals to EQ. And we can see what that is. So scope.EQ this time, save it, refresh, and it actually calculates it for us. Great. Well, we can also set it equal to a post element or a resource element itself. So we set it equal to post, and we're going to put this to post. And then in our actual blog list, we will now set post here, and we're going to put it equal to the item itself, which is just item. Right? Item is the context variable that's coming through. I don't have to use curly brackets here. I can just use item. So this allows us to do other things. click there, and now I see that there's a resource. It is actually showing me this post item. This is actually really useful because then if you wanted to make a preview specifically for a post item, just a little post item, you can make a directive and pass which post you want to preview. And then inside of our scope, we might actually be able to use this. So let's go ahead and do post.title and save that and refresh, and notice the title is coming in twice now. But if we changed our blog list and just commented out the other link, it would show us all of this stuff. And this is all now coming from this directive. So if we wanted the template to change at any time, all we would have to do is jump in this directive to change it. It's a really small, concise piece of something. Of course, that's not actually what I want to do. I want to keep the same format that we had before, so I could just copy this entire thing. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy every aspect of it that I can, and I'll do ng-href, and then change this to post. And then the link as well, let's copy that. And refresh. And now if I click on it, it's giving me not found. Oh, I know why, because we used item ID, not post ID. Refresh, so we click on this, and now it's working again. So back into our blog list, we can just totally 100% get rid of that. Now it's a confirmed click link, and we can do all sorts of stuff with this. This is pretty nice, right? And we can still grab our attributes things, or can we? So let's actually go in here and let's see if I can get the href tag. So from this template, if I refresh in here, notice it says undefined. So actually, this is getting the attribute on the actual item itself. But it can also get, let's try and get attribute post. If I refresh that, it does give me item, but it gives me just the text of the item. It doesn't actually give me the scope of the item, right? So it only gives me the actual value of what's written there, which in this case is item. So if we use it as scope, as we have here, we get the actual scope, what it actually means in relation to Angular, not what it means into relation to what is written there. So we could do the same thing with EQ, and we'll see, we actually undefined it. So if I added that EQ back, and I did 10 plus whatever number, we would see that actual number where the scope itself would calculate that actual number, right? Pretty cool. So that's the little things that are just like making it more powerful and useful. And all of these things are going to be just that much more useful for you when you really get into it. But see, I wanted to make this a real like life situation where you might have to confirm a click. Now, in this case, we don't want to actually, at the end of the day, we wouldn't want to have them confirm a click to see a blog post, right? That's not realistic. But what is realistic is having some sort of element that allows us to confirm some sort of click. And we're actually going to change this to do that, but I wanted to show you a little bit more about directives before making the actual element itself. So first of all, we're going to set the message. We're going to say var msg, so message is equal to, well, I want it to be the scope.message or just are you sure? That's it. So scope message, so the message that I'm passing through in the scope. Of course, I could use attribute message if I just want to get whatever's the core written thing in this message. But I'm just going to say scope.message. And that way I can do all sorts of things with that. And then I'm going to say, are you sure? So that's the message I'm going to say. And then, of course, you could add some other stuff to it. But I'm going to do element.bind. So this is a JavaScript function. And click, we'll say function event. Come in here and we'll say if window.confirm msg. Notice confirm is taking this variable right here. If it confirms the message, then we will do something here. In this case, I'm going to eventually make it go to a different link. But for now, I'll just automatically make it go to that link from the actual post item itself. This is not what we'll end up doing, but I just wanted to show you this. So I'll first off console log the post.id, which of course, if we just added that, we would have exactly what we need. Oh, and this should be actually scope.postid. Okay, so that should actually work for us right there, and that's that. So let's go ahead and try this again. Oh, we got an unexpected token in here. Let's see why. I click on this, line 17, confirm message. If confirm message, oops, we needed that extra parentheses there, and we don't need that one because it's an if statement. There we go. Let's try that again. No errors this time. Okay, if I click on this, now I get this window that comes up and it says, are you positive? If we go back into what we said, are you sure? Right, so are you positive is working. So I can click OK, and then it actually takes me to that actual link. Well, is it taking me to that actual link is the real question. So let's actually get rid of this href tag, and I'm just going to substitute it with a hashtag here, and I'll refresh again, click on it. Are you positive? I say OK. Nothing happens. It does log the actual link, but it doesn't go to the actual link. So this is where we actually have to use some other sort of things, such as inside of our function, right up here with the directive of confirm call, we have to use our root scope and our location. Okay, so we're going to use these two things. Normally you might guess, oh, well, I'll just do location.path and then /blog/ and then add the scope.post.id. I could try that out, click on it, say OK, and it seems to work. But it's not necessarily going to perfectly work every single time for all sorts of reasons. So I want to make sure that it works for sure by doing root scope, by using root scope.apply. So this method will allow us to always run this function in our root scope, and it's just that simple. So if for whatever reason location.path is not working correctly, you can just add this and it should go on the overarching page and actually do something to it by using the root scope and definitely making that change. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out, and we refresh and we click. Are you positive? You say OK, and there we go. Great. So this is actually what's happening here, and that's really nice. It's allowing us to prevent a link from happening. Okay, so this is great for doing this blog testing stuff, but it's really not that useful when it comes to creating a real directive. It's really just to show you what you can do. It's not going to actually create this confirm click directive as we may want in the future. So what I'm going to do is actually comment out all of this, leave it in there so you have it for your actual project. And then what I'm going to do is instead I'm just going to copy and paste another one that is actually already done that we did before, and it's going to look very similar. We'll just go through it real quick. So confirm click again, and dot directive, and here we go. We actually don't need this one. All right, so let's take a look at this. This is a very simple directive. It is still confirm click. It's just slightly different what we've seen before. So we have an attribute of confirm click. I do want to restrict it, so I'll say restrict, and I'm going to restrict it to A. Right, let's tab that back in, or tab these back actually. Okay, so I'm going to restrict it to A, and that means that it's going to have to go on something like this. And the attribute of confirm click, so this is going to be an attribute, so the actual attribute of confirm click, if I set that equal to something, then it will, change the question essentially that's going to be passed through. Otherwise, it will just say this if it's empty. And then confirmed click, notice it says confirm click and confirmed click. This is going to be some sort of equation or something that we want to actually do. So in this case, it's evaluating whatever that click action is. So this would be an action that's going to happen, not necessarily a link, right? So it might not actually work. So let's actually do this one as it stands for our old link. And I'm going to change the confirm click to being, are you sure? And then we will have, or are you ready? And then we'll have confirmed click to being the actual link itself. Save it. This old one I'm going to just comment out because we no longer need it. And now we have our original, or basically a more proper one for what would actually be used. And I'm going to go ahead and click this. It says, are you ready? I say okay, and it seems to do something. Now, realistically, this would actually, we would want this to be our submit button or something along the lines of for a form. So this would be more of a confirm click for submitting a form of some kind, but that's definitely something we will come back to. As you notice, it has some error, but the main part of learning about all of this stuff was to see how you might be able to change it and how directives are really, really useful. One thing I will add is you don't actually have to write just a template. You can do a template URL, just like what we've seen before in our components. So we have a template URL, very, very similar. It's just slightly different. Instead, it's no longer a component. It's just called a directive, and we use it. We can use it directly on the actual item itself, or any HTML item itself, or we can use it as its own element. Whereas components are their own elements. They can also be used as attributes as well, but we typically use them as their own elements. Great, so if you have any questions on this, let us know. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one.